Okay, so can you guys see the whiteboard?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So remember we were talking about yesterday how this is a two-dimensional coordinate system. And let's say we have this point right here. We're gonna say that's point 3 and 7. And we have point over here that's -2 and -8. So we want to be able to find the midpoint, so exactly the middle of that in between those 2 points. Okay. So if we have our 2 points, we have, let's say we have 3 and 7, and then we have -2 and -8. So does anybody remember how we would find the midpoint when it was only on one dimension, when we were having it on a number line? Does anybody remember how to do that?
Say it again.
Don't you multiply them?
Not that not necessarily you multiply them, right? You would add them, and then remember we would divide them by 2.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So why do we divide them by 2?
Because the middle.
Because it's
Half.
exactly the middle, right? So we want to split it into 2 equal parts. So what we're gonna do is that we're just gonna do the same, but since we have 2 points, we have to do it twice, right? So we're gonna add our x's together, we're gonna add our y's together, and we're gonna divide it by 2. So for example, that's 3 plus -2. And then that's 7 plus -8 divided by 2. Okay. So what would be 3?
1. It would be 1.
Right. So 3 plus -2, that's the same thing as saying 3 minus 2. So we can say this is 1/2. And, or I mean, I guess we could put it in this decimal as well, 0.5, but I just rather keep it as a fraction. And on the other side, we have 7 plus -8. What would that one be?
Negative 1/2, right?
-1/2, yeah. So that is our midpoint. So if we were to graph it, we would see that our midpoint ends up, I guess the graph is a little wrong here, but our midpoint should be in here. So let me redo this graph. Oh my gosh. There. There we go. So it should be something like that. And let me just erase all this other stuff. There we go. So this point right here, oh my God. There, that point right there, that would be exactly the middle. And of course, like my graph is a little off, so it doesn't look like it, but that's the case. And so again, we were talking about this yesterday, but what about the distance? How do we find the distance when we have a two-dimensional line like this?
Did you say you have to use like Pythagorean theorem or something like that?
Mm-hmm. So what we would have to do is that we create that right triangle between the 2 points. Okay. So in other words, remember that this is -2 and -8. Let me just erase here so we can have some space. Okay, so -2 and -8. And then on this other side, we have, it was 3 and 7. Okay, so how many times do we have to move over here to get to a positive 3? So how do we, when we go from a -2 to a positive 3, how many times do we have to move there?
5
Uh,
times.
It's
5.
5. Yeah, exactly. It's 5 times. And to get to from -8 to 7, how many times do we have to move all the way up there?
16. No.
You're close. I think it's about
Like 18, right?
15 actually.
Yeah, it's 15.
Right. So those are two. So we have 5 and 15. And that's how we would find our distance, right? So now we just plug it into the Pythagorean theorem formula.
So
25.
plus.
Let's see.
15 times
That
5
should be 25 plus 225 equals
Yeah.
equals 250.
Then you gotta square root it.
Right, so 250, and then we're gonna find the square root of both sides. C is equal to whatever the square root of that is. So sometimes it depends on what the question is gonna ask you, whether it's gonna ask you for the simplified version or the decimal. In this case, if we just write the decimal, that would be about 15.8. All right. So pretty
Yeah.
good. That's what the homework is. That's what the homework is about. And I just want to go over some of the problems on the Delta Math, just so we're aware of how to do them. Let's see. Okay. All right. So can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I already know the answer to that one. I already did it.
You already did that. Okay. So yeah, just to kind of go over how we're doing this, but basically it tells you a point -7 and -8. So let's plot that point at -7 and -8 should be right there. And the next one is 1 and -4. So let's go to 1 and -4 right there. Now what it tells you is that we want to create a triangle. So you just click and drag it, and then you're going to create a triangle. Now, we're going to put up our midpoint. All right, to find our midpoint, what we're going to do is we're going to take our x value.
And add 'em, right?
Yes, so our x value, which is -7 and 1. We're going to
So that'll
add,
be
and then our y values, which are -8 and -4. So -8 plus or -4 plus -8. Doesn't really, the order doesn't really matter because we're adding them.
so the first one would be
Three.
-6/2.
-6/2, which simplifies to -3.
3.
And
And
-4 plus -8 would be
-4, right?
-12, actually.
It'd be
That's well,
-6.
you add it. Yeah, you add it. You make it bigger.
Divide both of those by, divide by -12 by 2, that should be -6. So our midpoint is at -3 and -6. So -3 and -6, our midpoint falls right there. Okay. So that's an example of that first one right there. So let's, -3 and -6 is our midpoint. So the second one, pretty straightforward. You don't have to do anything. You just have to solve what the midpoint is. So again, we're going to take our x values and we're going to add those up. And then we're going to take our y values and add them up. So that's 10 plus 3 divided by 2. And then 6 plus 1 divided by 2.
13/2.
13/2 and 7/2. Okay. And I believe we can put the answers like that, or you can put them as a decimal, whichever one you prefer. So let's just say 13/2. That's 6.5. So you have to put the parentheses 6.5, and 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. And just make sure to close the parentheses. And that should be our answer right there.
So we just could just divide each thing by 2 and then put the parentheses.
Exactly. So all you're doing is just, because basically all we're really doing is just we're finding the exact middle of the line. And to do that, we would have to divide the distance of the line into equal parts. And that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah. So we also do.
I couldn't hear anything you said, you cut out.
You got it right.
Well, all we're doing is just like we said, we're just cutting the line in half. So that's why we divide by 2, and we have to divide the x and the y's by 2. So we're just gonna cut both of those in half. All right, the next thing is the Pythagorean theorem problems. So it's just a review, just so we're fully aware of how to do these. So for example, right here we have our a value, we have our b value, and we have our c value. So it should be 5 squared plus b squared equals 7 squared. Okay, so in this example, we should be 25 plus b squared equals 49. And we're going to solve for b. So to do that, we should subtract 25 on both sides. We'll have b squared is equal to 49 minus 25, which is 24. And we're going to take the square root of that. So I believe what it's going to ask you to do is, what it tells you to find the exact solution. So you could just leave it as a square root of 24. Okay, because it doesn't, when it's talking about the exact solution, it doesn't want you to put it into a decimal. So you could just leave it as the square root of 24. In this case, we are finding our c because we have our a value and we have our b value. So this should be 1 squared plus 6 squared is equal to c squared. And this is 1 squared is 1, and then 6 squared is 36. That's 37 equals c squared. We're going to take the square root of both sides. So c is equal to, again, the square root of 37. So it tells you to find the exact length. So it wants you to just leave it as a square root. That's what that means. Now, if it's asking you to round it to the nearest tenth, then you would turn it into a decimal. Okay. And finally, we're just going to practice our distance formula, or just finding the distance. And to do that, in this example, all we would have to do is draw out a triangle. So We're gonna draw out a triangle and we can say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's a side of 6 and a side of 2. So our legs of our triangle are 6 and 2. And then we're gonna plug that into the Pythagorean theorem to find the distance. So 6 squared plus 2 squared equals c squared. So that should be 36 plus 4. That's 40. So c is equal to square root of 40. And again, it's asking you for the exact or simplest radical form. So let me just make sure. Yeah. So how can we simplify this? How can we simplify square root of 40?
Put on the calculator.
Well, not necessarily in the calculator, but what we want to do is that we want to find two factors. So we want to find a factor of 40 that is a perfect square and one that is not a perfect square. So what two factors of 40 do we can we have there?
20.
What is?
Oh no.
Well, not, I mean, because 2 and 20, neither of those is a perfect square. What about
5.
4 and 10?
Oh yeah.
And we can find the square root of 4, right? What's the square root of 4?
2.
2. So all we have to do is simplify that, and we have 2 square root of 10.
Oh, okay.
And so that's our answer right there.
Okay.
Okay. So let me do another example of those just so you guys are good with that.
Gordo,
What?
get on 2K, bro.
Bro, we're in class. Don't talk about that.
After this.
Shut up, girl. You just woke up.
Cassandra, be quiet real quick.
Y'all both be quiet and let Rodriguez teach.
I guess we're almost done. So let's do, for example, square root of 50, okay? Remember that our perfect squares are 4, well, I guess technically 1, but 4, 9, 16, 25, 36.
Oh, yeah.
So let's split this into a perfect square and then something else.
5 and 10.
5 and 10, but neither of those is a perfect square. So
Oh, yeah.
what about, so choose, pick one.
25
Yeah, there we go. 25 and
2.
2.
Right?
Yeah. So if we take the square root of 25, what would be the
5.
answer here? 5 square root of
2.
So that's pretty much how we simplify our square roots. So let me think of another one here. What about
75.
well, 75, I guess. I mean, 75 is pretty much the same, right? So what can we split that to?
I don't know. 16? No.
If it ends in 5, that's a pretty big giveaway.
25.
Yeah. So square root of 25 and square root of 3.
Oh, yeah.
25 times 3 is 75. So if we take the square root of 25, that should be
5 squared 3.
Yeah. And those are all of our simplified versions. Let me do one more.
I think Gordo's tired.
What about
What?
what about 32?
32. That would be 9.
Oh, 8, 9. Yeah, 9.
9?
Yep. 9. No, it wouldn't be 9.
Yeah, it would be 9, right?
It's 4. 4 and
Uh,
6. No,
I mean,
Four.
4 and 8. 4 and 8.
I mean,
Oh
4,
yeah.
I guess 4 technically does work, but we can go a little bit further than that. What
What
about,
about 9?
12.
16
What about
and
9?
2.
it's
16
16.
and 2.
Yeah.
9.
16 and 2, y'all idiots.
No, 16. What about 16 and 2?
Then divide it in a calculator, quit capping.
No, I didn't.
So square root of 16 should be 4, and then the square root of 2.
Yeah.
And here's why. Like, let's say you guys were right when you said 4, but
Who divides by
4?
16?
That's 2 square roots of 8. But then we can do it again with 8, right? What can we split 8
Mhm.
into?
4.
4.
4 and
2.
2. So if we take the square root of that, that should be 2, and then 2 square root of 2. So if we multiply 2 and 2, that's
4.
so it's the exact same thing. Okay.
Oh, that's
Just
harder.
more work.
to do it that
Yeah,
way.
exactly. That's more work. So we want to simplify it as much as we possibly can the first time. So let me see. So again, if we just do, if right from the beginning we just did 16 instead of 4,
Girl, text me back, bro.
all it is 4 square root of 2.
Robert, shut up. We're in class.
Gotta mute Cassandra shit.